Section 3.4 is about linear and angular speed. So for linear speed, we're talking about how fast a point on a circular disc is moving, or how fast a central angle is changing. Think about pulleys and gears. And the formula for linear speed is V equals S over T, where S is the arc length and T is time. Angular speed, as P is moving, the ray rotates around the origin. How fast that angle is changing is the angular speed. And angular speed, this is a Greek letter, we're just going to call it W, equals theta over T. All right, so you can manipulate those. Linear speed, you could have three different things. Remember that W is in radians per unit time, theta is in radians, and you could have you could see all of these different formulas for angular and linear speed. So some of the sample problems, usually they've given you the formula and then they give you W and T and say find theta. So plug in what you're given. W goes on this side and it's theta over 3. And so what could we do? If you have a proportion, you can cross multiply. So you would have 6 pi equals 3 theta. Theta equals 6 pi over 3, which equals 2 pi. All right. In this next one, theta is 3 pi over 4, T is 8 seconds, W equals theta over T. So it's 3 pi over 4 over 8 over 1. Just flip that. So you've got 3 pi over 4 times 1 over 8. That's 3 pi over 32 radians per second. Find the missing variables. V equals RW. They gave you R and W. That means we're just multiplying these two things. That gives us 8 pi. For the next one, V equals RW. They give you V and R. So 9 equals 5W. So 9/5 is W. That's radians per second. And the formula, so this is, I'm showing you here how you can manipulate the formula. W equals theta over T. So if you multiply T over here, you've got theta equals WT. If you know arc length is S equals R theta, then you can substitute this for theta here and you get S equals RWT. So in this one, we're given W, R, and T. And we know here, if we're supposed to be solving for S, we just multiply all of those and we get 54 over 3 pi. That's 18 pi. S equals 3 pi over 4, R equals 2, T is 4 seconds. So S equals RWT. Plug in all the parts, divide by 8. You get 3 pi over 32. So it's really just manipulating that formula. So I think these problems should not be too tough. Let's go look at them. All right, in the picture, point P moves at a constant rate along the unit circle. Select the correct choice that completes the sentence. The measure of how fast the position of point P is changing is and remember that's the definition of linear speed. Point P moves at a constant rate along the unit circle. Select the correct choice. The measure of how fast angle POB is changing is the angular speed. All right, suppose P is on the circle. We've got R is 6, W is pi over 6, and T is 8. And so here is our formula. What is the angle generated by P in time T? And that means we're solving for theta. So W equals theta over time. So W is pi over 6 equals theta over 8. So multiply the 8 over here, 8 pi over 6. Reduce that, that's 4 pi over 3. So that's the theta. What is the distance traveled along the circle? That's arc length. So S is r theta. So that's 6 times 4 pi over 3, because we just solved for that. That gives us 24 over 3. That's 8 pi. What's the linear speed? V is rw. So r is 6. W is pi over 6. And so that just turns out to be pi. Same thing with this one. You're given r, w, and t. And if you're solving for theta, theta is wt. So theta ends up being 2 pi, pi over 5 times 10. Then the distance traveled is the arc length. S is r theta. So S is 3 times the 2 pi. So that gives us 6 pi. The linear speed, V is rw. So V is 3 times pi over 5. 3 pi over 5. Number 5, use the formula W equals theta over T to find the missing variables. So they gave you W and they gave you T. So plug into the formula. 5 pi over 6 equals theta over 18. You can cross multiply. Here is 90 pi equals 6 theta. Divide by the 6 and then reduce. You get 15 over pi. Same thing here, except that we are dealing with decimal radians rather than the pi. So we've got a W of 0.9217 equals theta over 11.85. Multiply, you get 10.92. 7, we're using the formula. W equals theta over T. 4 pi over 5 over, and you want to remember that that's like 9 over 1. So when you flip it, you have 4 pi over 5 times 1 over 9. And that's 4 pi over 45. On this one, number 8, theta over T. So that's the long theta that you're given divided by that. You get 0.232275. It said round to 6 decimal places, so that's what I did. And those 8 problems are just getting you to use those formulas and get you familiar with linear and angular speed.